7 matches on night 1 of WrestleMania and 3 with no real favorite, so I'm here to break it all down next to keep our 80% success rate going, so just keep watching. WrestleMania, the granddaddy of them all, and the showcase of the immortals, this is simply what it is all about, so today I'm making my picks for night 1, and that means I'll be back tomorrow for night 2, but first as always we will recap the Elimination Chamber, which got us right back on track because we went 4-0 with our picks to bet and picks to win, and we're now back above 80% in our picks to win at 53-72, and above 75% for our picks to bet at 49-16. There were no props last time, and as of now, there are no props this time either, so we can skip that and get right to our history segment, and we have nothing we really need to say about the history of WrestleMania itself because it speaks for itself as pro wrestling's biggest event of the year. But we still have a few stats to consider, and because Doc went back last week to WrestleMania 30 to rank his top 10 triple threat matches, we'll look back that far as well, including to WrestleMania 30, and since then we've had 150 matches on the dot, and including the pre-show and that one post-show match with Drew McIntyre and The Big Show, we've somehow had exactly half of them for a title, and of course that means the other half were not for a title. So when we remove the Roman Reigns versus Brock Lesnar winner-take-all match, we have had 74 title matches with 31 retentions and 43 new champions. So that means the champions retained at a 41.9% clip, while we've had new champions 58.1% of the time. And with all things equal, I guess that means we should give the slight edge to the challenger. But I guess WrestleMania 30 is just kind of a random place to start now, isn't it? So, since we moved to a 2-night WrestleMania at WrestleMania 36 inside the Thunderdome, we've had 37 title matches, and 18 of those were retentions for 48.6%, and 19 of them gave us new champions for 51.4%. And you say that is still in itself kind of random, so alright, Triple H was only in control of the creative plans for the last 2 WrestleManias, so fair enough. I'd say that is too small of a sample size, but of the 14 title matches, 6 of them were retentions for 42.9%, and 8 of them gave us new champs for 57.1%. Now last year specifically had a couple funky results because we had 2 new champions in the men's tag ladder match, so I only counted that once, but we also had Damian Priest Money in the Bank cash-in, so that gave us 2 separate new champions within a 5-minute span. So I did count those as 2 separate matches, hence we had 2 new champions there, and I guess those 2 results kind of cancel each other out. So, ever so slightly, we still lean to new champions. And going back to that 2-day mania in WrestleMania 36, here's how often each title has changed. For the WWE title, it has changed every other year, so it's changed hands 3 times. The Universal Championship changed hands 1 time, while the World Heavyweight Championship also changed 1 time. We've also had at least 1 women's title change hands every single year since WrestleMania 36. And I have to say, WrestleMania 36, it was only the Women's NXT Championship that changed hands. Still, we're going to count it. But only in WrestleMania 37 did both women's titles switch hands. Interesting. Now for the men's mid-card titles, those actually don't change hands that often, as the IC title only saw 2 new champions, but the US title only saw 1 new champion. So that is pretty surprising. So we'll just have to see if that holds this year. Now for the men's tag teams, if we only count last year once, we've had 3 new champions in 6 matches. Now for the women's tag championships, they were not defended in either of the Triple H era WrestleManias, but they did change hands 2 times out of 3 matches. And I guess that is enough of a prelude for you here today, so we'll get into any other important stats for each match as they come along. So let's get to it. We're going to do these in the order that they are listed on Wikipedia. So we'll start with the World Tag Team Championship with the War Raiders at plus 550 for 15.38% implied probability, while the New Day is at minus 1,000 for a 90.91% implied probability. The War Raiders have been great since their return, but the Raw Tag division is practically dead. So I think it's safe to say that we need something new to heat it up, and so the only sensible thing is a New Day title reign, and since they're shifting character with everyone hating on them, it at least would get people interested in seeing something new. And indeed, the New Day's last title reign on the main roster was back in 2021, and like the Street Profits on SmackDown, it is time to finally get those titles back onto them. So is there anything that would make sense to have the War Raiders retain? Yes, there is one very big thing, and that is indeed Big E. Now, the War Raiders said the New Day made it personal this past week by taking on their necks and trying to end their careers. So who else has an injured neck? Yeah, so if Big E can do something to stop the New Day, that would turn this match up from a throwaway to something that might just be really memorable. But until I see or hear otherwise, I am not going to believe that we'll get to see Big E do anything remotely physical, so I'm just not going to count on this. So with the men's tag team changing hands in 3 of the last 4 years, we're simply going to do it again, so the New Day is the pick to bet and the pick to win. Second is El Grande Americano at minus 130 for 56.52% versus Rey Mysterio at minus 110 for 52.38%. So Americano is a very slight favorite here, and so we'll talk about him here first. And everyone does know that that is Chad Gable, and indeed they kind of blew it this week because Gable's tattoo was showing. So they did not do a good enough job to cover that up in the El Grande Americano outfit. So I guess that is kind of giving away the identity, and pretty sloppy, WWE, pretty sloppy. Okay, anyways, this is indeed our comedy match of WrestleMania, where the bad guy pretty much always gets his comeuppance and everyone gets a good laugh out of it. And we have been teasing pulling off El Grande Americano's mask several times already, and Dragon Lee even lost his mask in Americano's debut match, so the perfect ending is simply having Rey winning the match and then getting that El Grande Americano mask ripped off. The only problem here is that El Grande Americano debuted just a month ago on March 17th and has only had 2 total matches, so there's not really been enough time to settle in with this character. So a logical outcome is for El Grande Americano to win, and then perhaps to go on to face a potential new IC champion in Penta, which is not a spoiler, we're gonna come back around to that one tomorrow. But that would officially solve his luchador problem by beating him. However, Gable did say he wanted to solve that luchador problem all the way back on the Netflix premiere of Raw, so that has been 4 months in the making. So sometimes it's just better to get in and get out with a gimmick before something goes awry with it. So as the odds imply, we don't really blame you either way for this pick, but we'll take the very slight underdog here with Rey as our pick to bet and pick to win. In match number 3, we have Naomi at plus 300 for 25%, taking on Jade Cargill at minus 500 for 83.33%. And when you nearly get killed and are out for 4 months, and then you finally get your chance for revenge, you simply have to win, right? Well, WWE made a big investment on Jade Cargill and put her with Bianca Belair for most of a year, and then let her train away from the scenes to be ready for a singles run. So this is indeed that moment where the rubber will actually meet the road. So does WWE believe in Jade, or are they giving up on her? Well, based on her one match with Liv, I'd say that Jade passed with flying colors and is now in position to soar. But Naomi has been very convincing in a short time with this new toot of hers, so perhaps she's finally getting the flowers that she deserves. And I'll note that many people will point out that this is the first women's singles match on WrestleMania since WrestleMania 22 in 2006 that does not have a title on the line when Tori Wilson defeated Candice Michelle in a Playboy pillow fight match. So 2 things to point out here with that. Number 1, a singles match is any match where you're fighting for yourself and not with a team. So we've had 3 pre-show matches that qualify. The 2 women's battle royals at WrestleMania 34 and 35, and at WrestleMania 36, we had a one-on-one match between Liv Morgan and Natalya. So number 2, yeah, I will give it to you that if this applies to the main card only, then yeah, you are right about that. But beside the point, I think those 3 matches should count. However, the bottom line is that Naomi can regain her heat very easily by doing something very dastardly, even immediately right after losing this match or on the following SmackDown. But regardless, Naomi will be fine no matter what, so Jade is our pick to bet and pick to win. So let's get back to some title matches with the United States Championship, and LA Knight is your champ at plus 250, but that's only a 28.57% implied probability, while Jacob Fatu is a minus 400 for 80%. While the US title has only changed hands 1 time in this 2-night WrestleMania era, so I guess we do need to take some pause there based on the history. But Jacob Fatu has just been so good that this rise feels inevitable to see him become the champion. And he even beat the unbeatable Braun Strowman in the Monster Zone last man standing match, so how could he lose a simple standard one? Well, I know the doc will pump the brakes on this because he'll say he's only 3-2 in one-on-one matches and 3-5 in all singles matches, but that's mostly due to either interference or that absolutely horrific call at Saturday night's main event for that DQ loss that cost us all a lot of money. Anyways, LA Knight just became the champion again at the beginning of March, and his only defense so far was that no contest against Braun Strowman, so we are still in transitional champion territory here. But I think that Nakamura reign was just so awful that they just had to pull the trigger and get the title back on the right guy to set up a good WrestleMania match. And I do think Strowman deserves better than getting nothing, but there is no arguing that this is a great US title match. And since LA Knight has been good for so long now, I think he'll be just fine to rebound from a loss. And should Cena win, it does make sense for Knight to get a shot in the near future. But of course, the one holdup here is Solo Sikoa, as he looms to turn on his cousin and set up their own feud away from the title. But I think that if Sikoa does turn here, it is after Fatu wins the title, because if someone does actually care about the bloodline, they would want to wait until after their own blood holds that title in order to go after them. And we actually may still see Sikoa in another match because Randy Orton, as of right now, still needs an opponent. So we have to give some weight to that, and if that happens, he's certainly not interfering. So, with all that said, we've got to go with the favorite. Jacob Fatu is our pick to bet and pick to win. The WWE Women's Championship shows a pick'em with Tiffany Stratton at minus 120, 54.55%, and Charlotte Flair with the exact same odds. So some people seemingly loved that there was some real world chaos mixed into their in-ring interactions, but I would rather see them simply stick to the script, and I think the script initially had Charlotte as the face and Tiffy as the heel, though WWE quickly rectified that and turned it around so that they were on the right side of the ledger. And making Charlotte the Royal Rumble winner probably meant that the plan all along was for her to get the win at Mania. So while the potential WWE draft will shift the rosters, it makes more sense for her to battle Tiffy yet again. And then also she can take on Jade and Alexa and even Bianca if she happens to lose her match than it does for Tiffy to simply get attacked by Nia again some more. So I do think it would be better for Tiffy to be the one to chase for a little bit. But we do have to say that Tiffy has been booked really strongly in 2025 as she is undefeated at 8-0 in all matches. And she is still new to this face run, so with just one match versus Roxanne Perez in the books, perhaps we could see these two battle each other for the title soon. So is a 3-month reign with only 2 successful title defenses enough, or will this completely destroy Tiffy's momentum? But I think Tiffy is simply too young and athletic, so she'll easily recover from this. So while everyone hates on Charlotte for burying everyone, she's actually only 4-3 at WrestleMania, and indeed she lost her most recent match to Rhea at WrestleMania 39. So sometimes a monster heel is just the way to go, and since there is always at least one women's title that has changed hands every year since WrestleMania 33, when in a pick'em, go with the new champion here, so Charlotte is our pick to bet and pick to win. Speaking of Royal Rumble winners, we've got the World Heavyweight Championship with Jey Uso at minus 700 for 87.5%, taking on the champ, Gunther, at plus 400 for 20% implied probability. And I can't actually believe that these are the odds, because I thought this would be about minus 2,500 for Jey. So obviously some people are picking Gunther to win here. And credit to Gunther for making people think that, so I guess he's done a good job, which he did when he soaked Jimmy in a pool of his own blood and then soaked it in himself a little bit. He also had a really nice impassioned speech this week inside the middle of the ring, but Gunther is simply made to be a big boss that needs to be toppled at the end of the road, and with Jey losing 3 times already to Gunther, if we had another one, it's simply the end of the line for Jey. But the people here came to yeet, and they're going to get to yeet, so based on what may just happen in the other men's title match, we simply need to let these people go home happy here, so Jey is the pick to bet and the pick to win. But the actual main event for night 1 of WrestleMania is that triple threat match between CM Punk, Roman Reigns, and Seth Rollins, and Punk is surprisingly a very small favorite at minus 15 for 53.49%. Then Seth Rollins at minus 110 for 52.38%, followed by Roman Reigns at plus 300 for 25%. And this has seemingly just been the battle for Paul Heyman, which is so weird, but yet still so good. I've got to give him that. And it made this one seem like it was just about Punk and Reigns until 2 weeks ago when Seth Rollins entered the fray with his near stomp to Heyman, saying that he is owed a favor from him. And then this week, he landed that chair shot to Roman Reigns' back and then followed that up with a stomp to both men. But I do think it was that saying that he needs to do what's best for business that really stood out here. And I only initially thought about the Authority based on his past. However, others noted that John Cena also said this in his post-show speech after losing at the Royal Rumble. And we know how that turned out for Cena at the Chamber, so will Seth Rollins be joining The Rock? And that actually does make some sense because Rollins should be the one to turn heel if anyone does, and he was the one who stomped out Punk at the Chamber to help Cena get that win. So yeah, this very well may happen yet again, and then Seth will again pull double duty. So does that mean he has to win here if he does? No, it doesn't, because 2 things to point out. The other 2 times when he pulled double duty, he actually lost his real match. First, before his cash-in at WrestleMania 33, he lost to Randy Orton earlier in the night. And then last year, he actually lost twice. First, in night 1's main event in the tag team match, and then he lost his title to start night 2 against Drew McIntyre before he finally helped Cody Rhodes to finish the story. And he did that by taking his own chair shot from Roman Reigns to his back, so very interesting callback there as well. And number 2, the thing that I always like to point out is that we do not like when a wrestler gets that final advantage before their match. And this happened not once, but twice here with Rollins as he stood tall to end both of the last 2 weeks. First, when he stomped on Punk, and then did that fake out on Heyman. And then this week, as we just said, with that chair shot and then a stomp to each man. So Rollins simply has too much momentum on his side right now because he started this as the third wheel, but right now, it really looks like it'll be Heyman who follows him at the end of the night. But speaking of Heyman, he did mention in an interview with Rich Eisen that Rollins may have some time off after this Saturday. Well, that obviously could mean nothing, but it also could mean something. But let's turn our attention to Punk here next, because he is the ever so slight favorite here, and he is the one that is owed a favor, which Heyman simply seems to be doing by walking down the aisle with him, so who knows how much help he can actually get from him. However, it does at least make sense that Punk has come to Heyman's rescue the last 2 weeks. But it is to be noted that he has failed spectacularly at it in both of those last 2 weeks. So when the dust settles, it might actually work out in his favor, since he has looked so bad these last 2 weeks. And yet, it just does seem a little bit too on the nose if the favor works out as intended, right? But it does also seem like it is CM Punk's character that if he wins this match, he'll try to turn right back around and get a title shot, which only really makes sense if Gunther wins, though of course the draft could flip the course around for a possible bout against John Cena. But there is one thing we have to admit here, that somehow the old guy of these three is actually the most likely to show up on the Raw after Mania and then into the immediate future. But then the least likely to show up is Roman Reigns, because we know he's on a limited schedule, and if last year is any sort of a blueprint, we may not see him for a few months. But WWE simply can't do the exact same thing every year, right? Well, I don't know. But Reigns can win this just because he is Roman Reigns, and if you listen to the doc at any point, you know that Reigns does not win matches on his own. So what better way to reset this character and actually win one with actually no wise man, no bloodline, and no help whatsoever to actually, in a very rare event, get a clean win? Well, for some reason, people just want to love this guy despite the fact that he's not doing anything that a good guy would do, except say the name of their city before he makes you acknowledge them. Maybe I'm starting to sound a little bit like Doktor. Well, let's just forget that. Nonetheless, they even booed a helpless Heyman a little bit as Reigns was stalking him before Rollins came out last week, so yeah, it does seem that people just want to see Reigns as a good guy, which does make it seem hard to think that he would lose 2 years in a row. So I have to admit, Roman Reigns is a pretty great value play here as the third pick amongst these three. But truthfully, all three guys can win this one, but I'm going to stick with these two things. Number one, both Rollins and Reigns are due to take breaks after this, and CM Punk is the one that will indeed show up. And number two, with this being Punk's first main event, and with him having by far the best year of these three, it is finally time to reward Punk for this amazing comeback. So, even though I have very big doubts, I'm yet again go on the line where I always get it wrong, and I am yet again going CM Punk is our pick to bet and pick to win. All right, well that takes us to our recap. Here it is. We've got the New Day. We've got Rey Mysterio as our slight underdog pick. We've got Jade Cargill. We've got Jacob Fatu. And then our two Royal Rumble winners, Charlotte Flair and Jey Uso. And finally, I'm yet again going with CM Punk. But with lots of really tight odds, anything could happen, and that is exactly what you want at WrestleMania. But what I want you to do is to go right on over here and check out Doc's video where he ranked the top 5 biggest snubs of WrestleMania 41. And yes, I'll be back tomorrow for our Night 2 predictions. But until then, I am the SportsZu, and this has been the OK Not OK podcast.